Not an easy challenge to judge actually, because it is a photography competition, and whilst some of the images may inadvertently be more interesting than others, I have to judge them on the actual photography side of things. So, are you sharing your images yet?
Not yet. Just give me a
Right,
second.
okay, so yeah, I just want to.
I'm in between and twixt in between at the moment.
Yeah,
for,
but it's an interesting concept, and I had to look back at the brief once or twice to think how a particular image fitted it or not. Yeah, so it's an interesting mix of the obvious COVID related and some other rather more perhaps obtuse but easily relevant images. So this is number one, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. I have looked into it before, so.
And can I just to confirm that was what is the title? The title of this image is 2020 Vision. Someone used it.
Yeah, well, it's the actual image is of various items that help that superb vision, isn't it? It looks like two quite expensive telescopes or lenses, or I've seen those things on the top of tripods that bird watchers have, so they can really see. I can't see the point of a tripod other than putting a camera on it, but that might be my bias. So we've got here lots of pairs of spectacles here, which are also good for helping the vision, essential for most of us. The appeal of this is it's almost like lots of butterflies landing on something attractive, isn't it? With the way the specs are arranged on top of the I'll call them telescopes, they might not be, so correct me if that's wrong. And the angle you've approached, because the wood grain then in the background looks sort of pushing the eye down, so that's remarkably effective. A bit of shadowing. The lighting on this is generally pretty good. All the black detail shows up. You can see some shiny bits, which is perhaps where whatever light you've used has hit the item. And you've used the vignetting for pushing the eye inwards. So an interesting idea, and the black and white process, well, you had to do it, couldn't you? It's silly having a brown wood background or whatever colour your wood was on with this image, which I imagine is near or black. Yeah, but it's butterflies landing on something attractive, which comes to mind, and yet it would help your vision in whatever you wanted to see, whether it's the planets or the local bird that was miles down the road, and you're expected to recognise it's a little something or other. Yeah, so you don't want any scores though, do you? You just want...
Yeah, but I've forgotten to set all the scoring up on this. So if we do, we're going to do first, second, third, highly commended. Yeah. So I'm going to have to convert it to a number. So we'll do 2019, 18, 17, 16. Yeah.
Well, you don't want me to number though, do you?
No, I'll convert it in my head. So you just tell me if you want to hold it back or if you want to score it.
Right, well, okay, yeah, that's what I thought you'd want. So yes, we'll move this one on anyway, interesting as it is. We'll have the next one, please. Oh, this is quite a poignant image, isn't it? I remember seeing the playground in my village closed at the start of the lockdown, and I thought how sad. And that really does bring it home, doesn't it, when little kiddies can't just go and play because they might mix. I suppose very little was known about it then, and it's more the parents that were the problem rather than the children. Children can't stay apart, can they? So this image does really sum up that part of the lockdown very early on and summarises what you can't do. And there were so many restrictions. As an image, I'd like to see a bit less of the sky and a bit less of the fence and a bit more of the closed and what is closed. Is it some sort of climbing frame or slide or something? It's quite dark within the image, and that is what is closed. It's the notice that's important, but it's what it is that's closed, the significance of us closing down normal playground areas which children then can't enjoy or get together. So I think you could have possibly made more of this actually as an image. Your idea is great, you're thinking in the right lines, but as a finished object, you know, the sky is pretty dull anyway, our skies often are, and the fence is not great. So take out those elements and I think you would have a stronger image. The closed sign is really the interesting thing and what's behind it. So that's a great one though, but we'll move on, please. Right, so this one I think conveys more emotion than a straight example of what lockdown actually involved. Because for this one, I might be reading more into it than you intended, but I see a feeling here that you felt forlorn and sad and almost a bit of you dying inside because of what was happening to our economy and to our people and to everything, the world effectively. So you've summarized that up in a dying rose and done it very well. As an image, the top part of the petals are over bright and the lower part is not bright enough. So had you considered it as an image a little bit more, you could have rectified that, or you could do it in post-processing. The background you've left diffused, that's absolutely fine. But to summarize the feelings, I think again, tell me if I'm reading too much into it, but for me, you have then put this feeling of something that's gone and going and sad. It's quite depressing, really, isn't it? Anyway, with the actual technical side of it, it's too bright at the top and not bright enough at the bottom, but purely on the rose. So idea is great, just a little bit of execution there that's a problem. So well done, though. Let's move on, please. Yeah, I mean, the thing that puzzled me at the beginning of lockdown is why toilet rolls? Or why did they disappear? Why could you not get one? Because one thing that you don't need with COVID is lots of toilet rolls. But you do need flour, which you couldn't get, and you do need hand sanitizer, which you also couldn't get. But why toilet rolls? That's never been explained. So here we have quite a graphic image of whether this is your own private stock or whether this is, yeah, I suppose it must be a supermarket shelf. I don't think so. I did go and photograph a completely bare supermarket shelf once because I thought it was quite funny. So the way you've photographed this well, you've composed it well, you've obviously got a large number of toilet rolls. Perhaps you were one of the problems and I don't, what it's standing on almost looks to a casual glance like a keyboard of some sort. I don't think it was. Oh, lockdown, it's something that's going to lock, isn't it? I think. But yeah, it's a little bit very much of its times, and there's quite a lot there to emphasize the point. So I think the toilet roll side of it is perhaps overdone a bit, and certainly take good old Tesco out of the equation. You've turned it into black and white, which is good. You've got how many 4 at the bottom. It's an interesting composition. I'd like it to be a bit more mysterious, as in maybe a hand reaching through to take one, or obviously a furtive store somewhere in a cupboard. You could have made a little bit more of that, but the idea is great, and it will certainly be a strong reminder of a start of COVID in our case, won't it? Lack of toilet rolls everywhere, if you happen to have gone low on your stocks anyway. So great idea, but we'll move on, please. Let me just move this. Oh, yes. Now this is quite a stark image, isn't it? It's a clinical, clean, white, bright, very high key, and does have, this is the emotion coming through on this one of everybody gone, just deserted. What has been clearly a busy place at some point with all those chairs. Perhaps it's a school or college refectory of some sort. But it's all stacked up and all gone, and everything's bright and sparkling, and it does have that image. It's quite a stark, and what gets me about this is I don't know exactly where it is. So it's that air of mystery, that why and what's happened and where's everybody gone. It's like the Marie Celeste, it's just deserted. So without any context of COVID to put this in, or 2020, it's this clean image, it's very fresh with the connotations of COVID. But I think even without the current crisis, this would still be a strong image because it is so intriguing and regular, and it's beautifully lit artificially, but you have captured, you've got your exposure exactly right for your bright lights, which you've contained well. So technically you've coped well, and you've just summarized that deserted feeling. So can we hold that one back, please, Paul?
I'll try. There we go.
Right, so this person, this author has gone for the clarity of vision, and this is a great idea. I've seen it done with a camera lens, where, as in a filter, where that's been held in front of an image, and then the focused one in the center and the out of focus in the background. But here you've done it with a pair of specs, and yeah, excellent close up there of reminder of happier times when we could go to all these places. I don't suppose this was taken since COVID, or you've broken some of the rules or taken a risk, but it's a great scene, and you know, it's just something that we either seen in reality or we all know where it is. And you've got the diffusion around the outside, so it's technically done very well, and does have that feeling of clarity and vision, and looking forward as well as looking back, looking out of our particular world that we're trapped in at the moment, and to 2020. This is looking forward to the 2020 hindsight image, which might be the one for real. So you need to do that, go there and take it for real afterwards. So can we hold on to this one, please? Right, now I have obviously no idea who the author is for this, but I think you need to consider the models you carefully use, especially for the ones in the centre. Dubious characters there, I think. So consider your models, but let's ignoring who you've picked. I suppose these all have some sort of family relationship. The bubble idea is just fantastic, isn't it? However you've done your bubbles, I don't know, but you've encapsulated. Yeah, I think most people would understand that, wouldn't they? Most other countries have used the term bubble for now, and the bubble that you're colliding here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's one central bubble. Maybe this is Sally's image and it's her family. Check your models though, Sally, if it is. If it isn't, well done. Good choice in the middle there. So well composed, balanced extremely well. There's the right amount each side. Light in the right places, and you've captured lots of different people that probably weren't your takings, but you've exactly got the feeling of people spreading out and going around the sun in the middle and the satellites around the outside. So well technically done, and very enjoyable. So could we keep that one by, please? This is a stark image, isn't it? And looking at it with the shadow over March leading towards the Easter time. And for all of us, I suspect that's the first impact when we realised what we weren't going to be able to do, and the things we all had planned were just going to go out of the window and be cancelled. We have a family holiday with my daughters and grandchildren every year over Easter. And of course we had one booked and it didn't happen. So we're just hoping next year it will. But so for me personally, this is a strong reminder of what I missed. And it probably is for you who devised this. So great idea, blank calendar, nothing there. And the padlock with the keys to unlock it. So let's hope somewhere someone is finding the keys to unlock the current crisis. But it's a very strong image, and I think an extremely good interpretation of the situation we are currently in, not knowing the way forward. So well done. Can we hold that one, please? I'm not going to do this with every image, honest, but yeah. Yeah, this is one thing, the annoying things about using spheres in images, it does turn everything upside down, doesn't it? but that's just physics. The way you have used this to your advantage is a great idea. You've completely turned the world upside down, and you've got a person in the image, and I presume they were in the background as well. Yes, their head would have been under the window of the door, wouldn't it? Great idea, absolutely great idea. I would improve it, or I might consider having to improve it, had you got the sphere exactly central. It's unbalanced, and that's just slightly disturbing. Maybe you intended that. And also there's a bit of the sphere which is missing, and I think that really is a shame, and I don't know whether you've got a bit more to pop underneath. The white of the posts around the door is probably better if it's dulled down a bit, just darkened down, just so it doesn't command such a strong position, but it frames the actual sphere quite well. I just keep wanting to push it over very, very slightly, just to get it absolutely central. Sometimes things are better off balance and sometimes they're not. The effect is unbalanced. Now, if that was your aim, then you've achieved it, but I'm not interpreting, that's better, that way. So we'll move on, please. Right, a trio here, a triage of ideas. More recent lockdown with the closing of pubs and restaurants at 10 o'clock, with the endless notices of where to stand in a queue, and the NHS track and trace, which we're supposed to do every time we go anywhere, but I often forget. It's not that I mean to. I've been in at Wadston Manor today as the volunteer, and I did remember to do it today, but hey. Yeah, so an interesting little combination of ideas there, which are certainly the 2020 vision of now, aren't they? The 2020, what we will remember. Some of this will all blur into the background and we won't exactly remember when, what happened. Very clear images, black and white really suits it. The centre one, I think you could possibly have darkened down the background a bit more, because the white, whatever that is, something on the floor, door frame or something, is quite commanding. White does that, it attracts attention. So if you don't want my attention or anybody's attention to go to that little bit, you have to consider doing something about it, just making it a bit darker, which is relatively straightforward in post-processing terms. Excuse me. So great idea, but we'll move on, please. Yeah, life goes on as normal. And the harvest did, and we had super weather, didn't we, most of the time. Crops seemed to be ripening, although they had had a bad time earlier with all the wet earlier in the year. So to summon up a bit of reality, this is almost a sense of release, isn't it? A relief after all the reminders of the COVID times. Great sky, perfectly in focus, interesting crop, lovely shadows, a taste of normality and a sense of forging forward and going on to what we still need, which is our daily bread. So perhaps not the most dynamic or interesting of images, but it is a summary of life that will be normal again. And this will go on regardless. The farmer still has to grow the crops and harvest them. So great idea. I'll leave that one there, please, and move on. Yeah, this is often done, isn't it? It's really good fun to get people to do it. Excuse me, just talking too much today. So here we've got 3 well-posed people, possibly, just about socially distanced. Hate that phrase, a socially distanced gathering, as if we should be able to spell it out. Lovely warm place you're in. Might have been your back garden, but I don't think so, judging by the tree trunk on the right, unless palm trees grow in Leighton Buzzard. Hey, you haven't had an earthquake for ages. What are you doing? You seem to have quite a few, didn't you, 1 a week? I did point out to friends that Leighton Buzzard was the centre of the universe anyway. So, but this particular image, you posed it well, composed it well. Distractions here are really at the top. I don't know exactly what that foliage is, and that's absolutely bang in focus. And I don't know whether it's part of somebody's sun hat or a parasol or a tree that was getting in the way. But for this one, for me, you really need to consider exactly where your plane of focus is. And it doesn't need to be on that top bit, which is very dominant and even more dominant now because it's absolutely bang in focus, beautifully in focus. There are also a few lighter patches at the back. And again, this is one which takes the eye away from your subject. So probably there, you just need to dull them down a bit. If you're not sure about the Photoshop side of things, I think Paul's an expert in that and could easily direct you. So there's one or two things. The idea is great, but there's things that lack technically, or you haven't considered, possibly more than you lack the technical ability. But great idea, and well done for posing your people in such a interesting way. But we'll move on, please. Yes, it's really important these days to smile with your eyes. And at Wadston today, we had quite a few visitors, and my job is to interact with them and stop them going too quickly, so you keep them talking. And we're there to talk to people. So eyes are important because we're all wearing masks, visitors and volunteers. So you can't see people really, but the eyes are so important. Aren't they said to be the windows into the soul? That's the way that you see and people see you. So here we have 6 different sets of eyes. So super idea. Possibly you don't need 6 to make your point. They've all got the catch light in the eye, so done in some sort of flash or light conditions. Some are better focused than others. 1 or 2 don't seem quite in focus from the photography side of things. And there's different light conditions being used, but that's fine. I think had you selected maybe 3 of the better ones, maybe 4 to keep it even if you want to do this shape of image, that might have been less of a distraction, because my eyes are wandering all over it to see actually where do you want me to look. And you've made the point of eyes, but perhaps had you chosen 1 pair in the center and other smaller ones around, or some other less equal distribution of the eyes might have been stronger. You also crop on the one top left when you've got most of her nose in, but not all. Not the most flattering of crops for somebody to have their nose right so dominant. But from the point of view of the eyes, the one that's most penetrating is the second one down on the left, which is really sort of gazing and right. I'm very much involved with her or him. I would guess a her, the neatly manicured eyebrows, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so a great idea and well done. So we'll move on, please. Yeah, the queuing systems and these lengths places had to go to make sure that everybody would be technically safe and 2 meters apart and not gather together and could still go in, and numbers allowed here, there and everywhere. One thing that saddened me though was to see all the barrels of, I presume, full beer outside places, because they weren't used and they can have a certain lifespan, can't they? And I've even seen one that was advertised as come and help yourself rather than waste it, which I thought was rather a nice idea. So you've got the lineup here, you've got the clear. Well, I'm having to guess, I wouldn't have known without the title, that, I just saw a comment there, unequal pupils. Yeah, good one, interesting idea. Right, so back to this one. A lot of brightness at the back, which takes my eye to the back. So you've got to always think about this with your compositions and lighting, that where do you want the eye to go? And your title being queuing, it's got to be something on the line, hasn't it? There's no indications on the ground that there's any sort of distance marked out. And a small thing, there's something on the right, and I don't know what it is. Umbrella stand, some sort of leg, I don't know. And that's a bit of a distraction to take attention away from this line of beer barrels. That's where your emphasis is. Don't need the tables at the back, I don't think. We need more on the sign. Patrons, please wait here. And what else? Opening times, yeah. So I can read it nice and clearly. It's a good focus. So great idea. Maybe not quite composed in exactly the way you intended or the way it could be, but still a great idea for this subject. So let's move to the next one, please. Now, I ought to know exactly which gallery this is, but I do and I don't. I've been there. I have a feeling it might be the Portrait Gallery in London. It's something in London where there's an upstairs sort of hall. I've been in that. And there's this group of Roman busts at the entrance, and then this huge image of a parliamentary something or other. So what you've put together here is very much appropriate to the times, isn't it? It's really using features for good effect. I can't actually remember whether this could have been done as one shot or whether you've had to do it as a composite. Irrelevant anyway, because what you've summed up here is the Parliament, who really don't know what the hell's going on, and the people in the front who also don't know what's going on and how are we going to get out of this. So it's the friends, Roman and countryman effect, isn't it? Your background image is quite noisy, but I think that's possibly partly your intention, or certainly it's worked to good effect because it's a noisy place, isn't it? That sort of gathering of people. And the poor countrymen in the front really don't know what's going on and which way to look and what to do next. So great idea, well thought out. And where do we look clearly for direction? What do we do? So interesting idea. Can we keep that one by, please, for now? Yeah, simple composition on the thirds, extended thirds, interesting sky, and the deserted landscape. Maybe one person on it might have been the thing to have, but was it helping being with nature, which is what we did a lot, didn't we? But I don't know if you found that around where I live, which is Bearton, everybody was out walking, and they weren't normally. And you think, Boris didn't say you've got to go out for a walk, just go back and hide in your houses again, which you normally do. So us dog walkers were inundated with all sorts of extraneous people in the way. Yeah, but here you've got nobody, so it's communing with nature, but you are there to do that. Now, whether you took this deliberately on one of your walks or whether you just happened to have it and it reminded you of the right sort of the 2020 vision. Very clear image, good shades of dark and light, and an interesting sky. So it's because it is simple. I'm going to hold that one back, please. Simple idea. I don't mean a simple image. Okay. Well, she looks quite a character. Entertained the close or whatever she was doing. Got set up with microphone. Looks like there's some sort of sound equipment there. And she's dressed up very vibrant colours and very dynamic character, I would say. Good to have a neighbour most of the time, I suspect. Now, it's a shame about the car, nice as it is, it does rather dominate the centre of the image, and it's right where your subject actually is. So she probably hadn't thought to move it, and you possibly couldn't have said, would you mind moving your car, please, because you've lost the moment. Whether you could have shuffled round to the left and just got her against the garage door rather than against the car might have helped. But her, if you could get rid of the background, she is such a vibrant and lively character. Great eye dress sense and almost a sense of past the 50s sort of thing. The other technical issue here is the brickwork is not straight. I doubt it's the bad building, although modern building is not always that good. So superb idea, a moment captured, which will be memorable for whoever was there, but not quite technically as good as some of the others, but a good line of thought to follow. So we'll move on, please. Elephant's eye. I'm very fond of elephants, actually. I won't bore you with the reason why, but I think they're just such strong giants, strong, gentle giants, very powerful. Don't get on the wrong side of them, but they are just beautiful animals. And the texture around the elephant's eye and the front, almost down to the trunk, is beautiful, isn't it? It's a little bit grainy. I suspect you've cropped in. I hope you've cropped in and not got that close anyway. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here to submit it. But the eye, which is the subject of your image, is that the eye of the storm, the eye of the elephant? Lots of connotations here. Elephant's eye. So I'm enjoying the texture. It looks quite rough in this occasion. You've made it look you made it look interesting. I got distracted by a comment there, sorry. The eye you possibly could have made that a little bit brighter and a little bit clearer, especially as it's a subject and you're wanting my eye to go to that eye. But a great idea, and certainly adds to the wealth of tonight's images. But we'll move on, please. Yeah, now this one absolutely intrigues me. I must admit that I'm lacking a connection with the subject, and I'd really like that explained. So if I'm missing something and being completely stupid, I'd like to know that. But William Cooper is just an amazing character, and I didn't know too much about him until fairly recently. But he was born in Berkhamsted, I think it's early 18th century, and he's a great poet and friend of John Newton. And through this image, I did look at Olney and found it's not far away, and there's a museum there as well. So I will go there at some point and have a look. So this is a stained glass window, which is in Olney Church, of William Cooper. But why? I can see I know his connection with Olney, but what's that got to do with 2020 vision? Unless it's because it's a very clear image, which it is, and it's very intriguing. And what's the famous phrase? Variety is the spice of life. That's one of his. Yeah, great poet. So it's really interesting to see this. And because to Berkhamsted, I've got friends that live in Cooper Road. The Cooper Society sponsored the concerts my choir was involved in. So I've got a quite strong personal connection with this. But I really like you to explain to me how that fits into the context of tonight's competition. But really interesting, and I will go via Olney at some point to have a look at this. So thanks for all that. Anyway, that's a really good idea. So, but we'll need to move on, please. Yeah, keep calm and carry on. That's Dad's army, isn't it? Don't panic, as these birds fly away. I could almost believe they were real were it not for the feet of the front one and a bit of string hanging from the back one. You could almost get away with that, especially if you put in a sky background or something. So super idea, well thought of. Were they together? I think possibly they were, because they're all different. What it is what lacks what your image is lacking is this, it's a cohesion with front to back, and there's lines in what might be roof tiles or a floor or something, which are a great distraction, and the whole background is rather muddy and not literally, but just that sort of spoiling the beautiful effect of these birds. It might have been better in black and white when the distraction of the browns and yellows would not be there. So yes, a great idea. Lovely thinking there. Keep calm and carry on. Perhaps that should be our motto for this year. Just keep calm and just carry on. But we'll move on to the next image, please. Well, I don't know where or when this was taken. It's perhaps where you were. I hope you were keeping safe, because it's everybody wearing a mask except a woman directly behind the guavas or limes or something. And there's a few people, yeah, mostly wearing masks, mostly wearing them correctly. Some seem to think they work best if they put the mask under their nose, and some seem to think that masks should be worn around your chin. Not in this image, but I've seen them in supermarkets. A family. Yeah, round the chin works really well for protection against the virus. So here we have a busy market scene, possibly Leighton Buzzard High Street, but probably not. Very vibrant colours, and does my bum look big in this or what? But hey, who cares? So I think this might have worked very well in black and white, because there's such a distraction of colour that the point of your title is almost lost, because my eye is going from the yogurt to the fruit to the shopping trolley on the left to the bits of red at the back. So try it out in black and white. It might be a much stronger and much more effective image if you can do that. So yeah, probably not Leighton Buzzards, as somebody said. Think about the black and white side of it, because that can really help. It creates the texture without the distraction of colour. So we'll move on, please. Well done. The hole you must have dug to get in to do this one must have been quite significant. Get the camera pointing up. How did you do it? Don't know. Interesting. And I'm not sure where your image ends and where the screen starts. Perhaps it's a square crop. I've just got black surround on the front screen, on the other one. Yeah, I think it's a rectangular crop. So you've got the grass showing, and you've got the impression of the plant being ready to go in the ground to provide new shoots. So that's your 2020 vision for the future, isn't it? The new growth and good coming out of bad, and just things carrying on, a bit like the harvest theme, things carrying on. Technically, this is very clever. A great idea, shows some sort of divergent thinking there to get this shot, and creativity to come up with it. Good sky as well, not too bright, but also not too interesting, so we don't get distracted. So we'll keep this one by, please, Paul. Yeah, new skills. How many of us have tried something new? I hope all of us. It was that time at the beginning when it felt like an extended holiday, the beginning of the lockdown, when you really felt you could spend a day photographing a dandelion seed, or in this case, practicing your infrared conversion. Great. We had super weather for infrared as well. The trouble is we couldn't go too far to capture the scenes, but here you've converted the infrared colour. I've used infrared, but more in the black and white, which works best for me, but the different colours you can get make it really quite eerie, otherworldly, doesn't it? It's just really strange, the effect that the infrared has on us, how magic it is. And you start off with a very pink image and end up with something that's quite respectable. So I hope you learned a lot through this, because infrared photography is a great skill to be able to do. Can be a bit sort of gimmicky, but if you use it effectively, it really does show off an image to its full advantage. With the composition of this, I think that you were pointing out the learning of a skill. And so I think if you had you focus more on the sort of the center half of the image, and cut out some of the foliage on either side, which gets a bit tiring on the eyes, I think you would have ended up with a much stronger image, but still showing what you were doing, which is practicing a new skill. So if you take away this with the lockdown, it's probably been worthwhile. It's a lovely, well done, very well done. But we'll move on, please. Now, this one is very simple in its conception, and very striking, perhaps for that, because you have not tried to include too much. It's what you've used that really does bring the starkness of the situation. With the, I'm not quite sure what these zeros are made out of. That would be interesting. I couldn't work that out. But the twos are obviously the masks that we, or should it be face covering that we wear. And you've chosen a very simple black background. You've done quite strong lighting to cast the shadows, and it's very well thought through, and very, very effective for its simplicity. But yep, that sums it up, doesn't it? Probably a Getty image would be interested in that. It's a saleable summary of the year, I think, without being too just in your face. And oh, in your face, that's a good one, actually. Oh yes, good one. Yeah, I'm afraid that missed me, but the twos I got, and the whole image is very effective. So keep that one by, please, for further consideration. Yeah. Now, if you haven't seen this one before, you're probably quite captivated by the drama that is encapsulated in a relatively simple setup. Fire raging behind, or a demon of some sort behind a door. Your use of colour is stunning. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. You've got a little bit of reflection, you've got a little bit of sort of, I suppose, echoing of the colours, and you've focused around with the vignette. If I was going to criticise anything, it would be perhaps your vignette is a little bit strong. But you really do push the eye to where you want it, and it's a very powerful image. The enemy without. Who is that enemy? What is it? Can we see it? Why can't we see it? How can we keep it out? Door firmly closed seems to be the answer. So very powerful. This is a quite emotionally evocative of, I don't know, danger, and yet calmness within. So it's you've got the emotions going there. So hold on to that one, please. Yes. The only shopping experience, Waitrose. The first thing that struck me was the wonderful lines in the ceiling, or the roof, or whatever it is, part of the building, isn't it? Look at all, if you just did that top bit, you've got an excellent abstract with all those different lines going so many different ways and contrasting. So I would go back and get that as an image in its own right, just that bit of it. Think about where to put yourself so you don't get too much of the shop in, and then you've got such a good abstract there. Get rid of those ceiling lights, and that would be very strong. But take it as a whole, shopping trolleys, I have photographed them in the past, which is a bit sad when they've been reflected in a puddle or shadows, or sort of our life behind bars sort of thing, because shopping trolleys are a necessary evil of life, I think. They end up in canals, or, yeah, they're just fairly ugly, aren't they? Really gruesome. And I'm not 2020. Now, We'd see this at any time, anywhere outside a supermarket, rows of trolleys. If you're trying to emphasize the amount that aren't being used, then I need to see more of them. So a slightly higher approach to look down on all the handles, rows of handles, would have been better. I imagine they do extend into the distance. And apart from the security guard, I can only see 2 women, which is probably the way it is in supermarkets. Not many men like going there. Yeah, so it's a good summary of, well, it's more, is it a good summary of the times? It would, I imagine it would be, but I can't see that actually in your image. You haven't brought that out enough. But I do enjoy the roof a lot. So for a different reason, it's a great image. But we will move on, please. I suppose this is a lot better than the dog poo bags that usually hang on bushes. Why people do that, I really don't know. And also the number of masks that we do see discarded, not necessarily hung on the brambles, but just thrown on the ground. We could probably kit ourselves out with new masks if we brought them home and sterilised them and reused them. That's a gruesome thought. Yeah, so here you have, this is, what's it? What have we done? Yeah, what have we done? Good title. Evocative, simple. It is of the time, isn't it? It is of now. It is 2020, the year of the mask, the year of the covering our face. As an image, at the bottom it's just too dark, and there's a few bits of white distractions, and our judges often say this, but it really is important. What do you want me to look at in this image? You want me to look at that the mask hanging on the bush, the bramble. You don't want me with eyes darting down to the bottom to see the white stick that's there, or back up to the top to see the bits of whatever it is that are in the bush, probably just leaves turned on their side. So just very carefully consider what else is in your image. What do you want me to look at, and what don't you want me to look at? Perhaps we should all consider, of every image we present to anything, what don't you want somebody to look at? Can you do something about it? Often you can. So in this case, easily dealt with, a bit of cloning, job done. So your idea is great though, and it's simple. You don't have to have masses of information in an image to make it a great image, but there are weaknesses with the actual, I suppose, more the composition of this rather than the technical side of it. So we will move on, please. Right, now, I must admit to not quite understanding the significance of the boat. Possibly I ought to, and you might have to explain it to me. So an interesting composite, and the actual boat is well photographed, beautiful reflection. You must have an enormous bird bath is all I can say. The bird bath itself though is not actually in focus, and as that is part of your subject in your title, that really does need to be. And there's no reason why not, because I'm pretty sure they weren't taken as one hit, one photograph. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. And also when you've placed the water inside the bird bath, you haven't got it quite right, the positioning of it. It's a bit spilling over one of the edges and not reaching far enough onto the one on the right. When you do a composite, it is quite tricky. And to get it looking convincing is quite difficult. So consider how you diffuse the edges, particularly of the water, to make it look as if it just might be in the bird bath. The idea is great. And I love the actual boat. Look at the way it's rowing. Must be a very deep bird bath. Yeah, I'm more interested in actually the boat than the rest of it. The grass as well, I suppose you need it to show it's in the garden. But green is one of those colours that can easily appear. It was nuclear-like. I've heard it described. It's all very bright, very vibrant, very strong colour. And often it's yellow in the green that's the confusion. If you can tone down your yellow, you often remove the problem. Too much grass though, so for this you needed to consider how much of your image you included as grass, and did you need to have it there at all, or could you have, you probably could have taken that bit out. I suspect your bird bath is there. Yeah, interesting, intriguing idea though. But I do love the boat. Put that as a separate entry for something else. Let's move on, please. Car park, yeah. It actually looks as if this building hasn't been used for years, not just during COVID time, where the weeds have certainly grown up through all the cracks. And the building itself, I can't read it enough to see. I could have enlarged it, but I don't really like to do that. Great sky, good shapes. The lamp post, which you really don't need, or have all of it in. You could easily have dealt with that. Probably quite tricky to clone out, but you could have, you've got enough of the car park to crop that down so it wouldn't be an issue. And then you'll still have plenty to illustrate your image. You've gone for the low down look, which is really strong effect, looking right down at weed level. So you've got through to the building in the background, and just sums up car parks empty. It's very evocative of situation. The road I live on, which is the main road through Bearton, you probably know it, through to Aylesbury, normally very busy. Beginning of lockdown, I could have crossed the road without looking. It was so deserted. It was wonderful, but weird. So yeah, I'm enjoying this, enjoying your idea. It really does sum up 2020 vision. You can see clearly the mess because we don't need to park on it, or see clearly the sky or whatever. Yeah, great idea, but we'll move on, please. Right, now whoever took this one, I'd really like to know, is that a good book? Because I looked at it on Amazon and it's something I've been thinking about. So you can tell me whether it's worth the whatever it cost, I can't remember now. So, well composed here, well structurally composed, that you've done your cutout effectively and placed it on a beautifully contrasting coloured background, which complements the orange and blue. And the glass is placed judiciously so that the word focus is very much in focus. So thought through, well considered, simple but effective, lots of ideas, and you've allowed the top part, the distance, to go out of focus, but the focus itself, the word, is beautifully in focus, as in your title. So this is presumably you coming up with lots of different ideas and having the time and space to carry some of them through. So well done. Can we keep that one back, please, Paul? Oh, yeah. Very soft, isn't it? Very gentle. And the textures. I don't know about you, but I was playing around a lot with textures. I know you had, was it Janie Lazenby, who's superb. And lots of people have been using textures within their work. And they're often used not very effectively, sort of for the sake of it. But with this one, I think you have blended the background beautifully. I also possibly think if you only needed the top horse, do you need the bottom one? The colours of them are quite different. Now, they probably were, but it could be your lighting. And it's sort of a conflict between the colours of both of them, whereas the top one is beautifully soft and gentle and works extremely well with the background you have selected. You've done a very clear vignette. Both horses are well photographed. Love the one at the top. The one at the bottom is white, his white or her white is just a little bit stark. Whiskers showing though beautifully. So we'll keep that one by, please, for now. snapdragon. I remember these as a kid. My grandmother grew them. And if you take one plant and squeeze the one flower, you can squeeze the back of it and make it look like a mouth opening and closing. I remember that. So you've taken me back to my childhood. I can remember some of it. Interesting lighting here. I was looking at it to see if you probably have done a cutout, because the flower itself is very brightly lit. Still showing all the detail there, but the background very dark. Now I know you can do that if you were skillful lighting, but you've got to keep the light off the background. And so you've chosen for the back black. So it's a striking flower portrait, striking flower image, snapdragon. So is that your sense of normality, or is it a hint towards dragons of the east that have snapped at us? But the actual photography of the image is very strong. Look at the detail in the bottom flowers themselves. Is each one called a flower, or is it collectively a flower? Can you have composite flowers? I really ought to know a little bit more about gardening. Beautifully lit, and it's a very, very enjoyable image. Does it fit the theme? I'm not convinced. I'd have to go back to the title again now, but it is a strong image. So we'll keep that one by for now, please, Paul, if we could. Yeah, great idea. Love the viewpoint, right low down. Front of the exercise band is a bit soft focus. That's absolutely fine. You've got in the middle part clearly focused the weights, and you've got the gloves. But in a home situation, because I can see the fireplace in the background, which is great. That's exactly what it's the working from home, isn't it? Working out from home, which is what we ought to do. We had to do, but some of us didn't do very much of it. Distraction for me is the Lego model in the background. Is it a spacecraft just landing, or I don't know what it is, but that is a bit of a distraction. And had you been able to move that without breaking it, that would have enhanced your image. A beautiful concept of working out from home. So we'll hold on to that one, please, as well for now. There's quite a few.
So that was our last image.
Yeah.
We have 13 held back.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll take a break here. So hopefully you can see the screen, Kathy, with all the held backs there. You're going to have to bear with me because, like I say, I didn't set this up properly in the first place. So I'm going to, when you tell me, I'm going to score these with a number, and then I'll convert them later. Yeah. So we're going to do. So I think I said in my email, didn't I? Was it up to? You don't have to do, but if you want to do up to 3 commended, 2 highly commended, and then 3rd, 2nd, 1st. Yeah.
So how many does that take care of? 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
You don't have to do all the commended, and they're optional for you.
Right. So let's do some commended then. The horses.
The horses.
I don't remember the proper title, but you know which one I mean. Right, have you done that?
I hope so. We'll find out in a minute.
Right, so another commended then will be the weights, the indoor gym, whatever that was called, working out from home.
Working out from home.
Do you want the number?
Yeah, I've got it. Right, got that one. What was the next one was
that one.
That one, yes. I'll
yeah.
Turn these on. So that's the horses was by Wendy Taylor. This is Patrick Linford, Workout from Home. Yeah.
Yeah. Another one?
Yeah.
Right, the 3rd commended one, then the lockdown bubbles.
That one?
Yeah.
Pretty handsome guy in the middle there.
That's what I thought, Mike. Choose your models, I thought, actually.
Right, moving on.
Right, highly commended. It's the 2020 one. What's the proper title?
NHS 2020.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's by John Cruise.
And the other highly commended is the museum one. Where do we go from here? The gallery. That's it.
And that is from Malcolm Wright.
Right.
Okay, so third place.
It's that cafe, the Stark Cafe. It really does evoke the lockdown abandoned feeling.
This one?
That one, yes.
So
I might.
John Lewis.
That's not changed my mind.
By Mr. Kitch. Okay. Second place.
It's I can't remember the padlock, the lockdown. What's its proper title? Is it just called Lockdown?
It's called Lockdown.
Right, that
John
one.
Cruise. That one?
Yeah. Simple and very, very effective, very emotive of the time.
So that brings us to first. Drum roll, please.
Drum roll. I mean, the one that I've picked has had the most drama for me, and I think the first time I saw it, I thought it might end up being the winners. The Door, The Enemy Without.
No, you can't have that one.
Can't I?
No, you can't.
Whose is that then?
No, you can't have that one.
Oh no, definitely not. No, you're absolutely right.
It was a fluke.
Sorry, Mike.
Can I just adjudicate for a second? Can you confirm that the image that behind the door is of your own work and not, unless you have a scanning electron microscope in which you were able to take a photograph of the coronavirus? Yeah.
I can shoot you down in flames there, because yes, it is actually of my own work.
I can tell that's your front door. Yeah.
I can show you it's my front door. I can show you the image, actually, the background image, if you want, one day.
I believe you.
It was a treatment on stones at where were we? On the south coast.
Yes, you did, Terry.
This is all done without names. They're redacted when Kathy gets them.
No, I didn't know who'd done what. No idea.
No, they were all redacted, weren't they? You just get the title. So, well done, everybody.
And thank you, Kathy, for judging a very, very difficult subject to do, notwithstanding the fact that you like my pictures. But I mean, apart from that, there was some excellent stuff tonight. And, you know, I mean, people have really thought out of the box and come up with some great ideas.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. Some super ideas.